Hello. In this video, I'd like to explore the forward toggle cam, its effect on the mechanical behavior of the Luger. So we have two Lugers here, no mag, okay, no ammo, no rounds in the chamber. This one here has an intact toggle, forward toggle. Essentially, if you look here, you see that this is what I'm referring to as the cam, this part here. And when the toggle is pulled back upon recoil, you see how that cam acts on the striker to move it back, essentially acting against its spring. All right, so let's put this back in here. And move to the next Luger. Okay, this has a fake Krieghoff anchor toggle. So this toggle was sacrificed for the purpose of this experiment. Let's take a look. The cam is essentially shaved. You can see here, that piece of the cam is gone. So when the toggle train retracts, this moves over the striker and it doesn't pull the striker back. Okay? Essentially, the firing pin is always in the fully extended position, intruding the face of the breech block, unless of course the sear latches this piece of the striker, then the gun would be ready to fire, and in that case the firing pin won't be protruding. So that's the only time really without the cam, is when the you have latching of the striker, that the firing pin won't be protruding. Otherwise, it's always protruding. All right. So what effect does that have on the mechanics of the Luger? So now we don't have the main spring acting on this. The only spring in the toggle train is the striker spring. So if I move this back, you see that because of the cam, it's acting on the striker and it kind of brings the breech block forward all the way to meet the breech of the chamber, okay, the face of the chamber. Now once we take it all the way back, now I push in, the striker is going to be latched by the sear, by the trigger bar. So you see here, it's latched. And there is a force. We don't have a mainspring force, so the only force here is acting to push the toggle back is that of the striker spring. And similarly here, we have a situation, except that we don't have a cam. So when we move this back all the way, and then, or enough to set the sear, okay, again you see the force here, and this is ready now to fire. If we chamber it around, the trigger link is going to press here on this plunger and it will shoot the gun, as in both cases. Now, you notice that without the cam, as in this gun has this upper here has the cam in it. You see that the gap is bigger. This is about 7 millimeter gap here. This is about 10.5 millimeters. Okay, and that's the narrower gap is because of the presence of the cam. All right, push forward, and you see here again if you look down carefully, let me shine some light here. Once this is, the round is shot, now the firing pin or the striker is protruding the face of the breech block. All right. Now, the minute we start moving this back in about maybe a couple of millimeters like that, the head of the striker, the firing pin, goes inside the breech block, so you won't see it. Okay, that's all it takes. And this is the only time, by the way, with the cam, with an intact Luger, is after you press the trigger, round is fired, the firing pin protrudes, but the minute this recoils about 1.5 millimeters, this gap, then this firing pin all this way and all this way forward, the firing pin is inside the breech. You can see it here. The firing pin is not protruding. Now, if we go here without the slide, without the receiver, without the cam, okay, and if we look down here, we see that the protrusion is there of the firing pin, and that's always there, going to be there. As I move this back all the way, it's there as I move it forward until it reaches the latching point by the sear. We press it, now the striker is latched, the firing pin is not protruding. So when you are loading from a magazine, you see this striker head is protruding all the way, even without the trigger pressed, even up to latching point, it'll be out. And by this time, by this stage here, the round should have been released from the mag, and most of it should have been, chambered. And this will be done during the persistence of this protrusion of the firing pin, and that can create a problem, which I will illustrate next. Without the cam, we'll have that problem. So without the cam, let's put this together. Okay. Now let me load some dumb cartridges here. Okay. Let's try to hand cycle the gun. Okay. All right. Now we need to push more on it. I'll get to that. It's like there is some weakness in the toggle to move forward, and that also has to do with the lack of the cam. All right. If we have enough momentum, it'll do it. Aha. And you see what happened here on the last round, because that last round is not supported by rounds in the magazine. The round would have a tendency to move up, but that's still in a normal Luger. It shouldn't be a problem. It will feed. But if you look closely, you can see it. The tip of the firing pin, it's hard to see, but you see it's holding the round, the edge of the round in here, from moving up and fully get, seated in the breech block's cup. Okay, so that's an issue. And the reason this happened is because the cam is missing, causing the persistent protrusion of the firing pin head during the loading of the rounds. Okay? Okay, so let's put the other gun here. By the way, we can, since I'm in it, we can prevent that kind of problem from this round being stuck like that or jammed. We can do it by going to the firing pin, and replacing the firing pin. Lugers have quite a, close to 1 to 1.5 millimeter protrusion, which is really not needed with or required or necessary with the modern ammo. This is shaved. The head is shaved on this one. And you see if I put it in all the way, it's about 0.55 millimeter protrusion. And this firing pin with a normal striker spring will work fine with modern ammo 9 millimeter, and it will cause once it impacts the rounds here on the back, it will ignite and shoot the Luger. So one problem with the longer pin is that if we had the pin in, you see, let me quickly go back to the older pin. And you see that even upon ejection, or like if you are to hand cycle the Luger, what will happen, okay, you see this is protruded without the cam. This is not gonna be moved back for most of the cycle, as I mentioned. And if you put a round in, you see it doesn't want to go in because the striker, the tip, is trying to move it. Now this is rubber, it gets a little bit stuck. If we try it very carefully with a live round, okay, you see it doesn't want to sit. It doesn't want to sit at all. Even if you push it in, it wants to get out, and that means sometimes that might affect the extraction and ejection of the rounds, okay, because of this interference of this pin. All right, so let's go back to the replacing the firing pin, the striker, with something that has been shortened. And now we don't have that same issue. The protrusion is so small that this would still hold on the round, even though the protrusion is there. Okay, now let's see if this last round loaded from the magazine, if it's gonna jam or if this solves the jamming problem in this case. Okay, here's the gun is back together. Okay, and here's those rounds, the inert rounds. Okay, all right, so this is the gun with the cam removed. Need to give it some help sometimes. Okay, so it worked. You see, it's loaded the last round and ejected the last round, and that's because the protrusion is so tiny, it didn't affect the cycling, and it eliminated that last round jam. Okay, so far, this is telling us, oh, it looks like that cam, after all, maybe not that critical to the operation. Well, we'll have to put a full mag and try the gun and see if it's gonna, jam or what would happen to it. But I have a feeling that the gun will work. It's not gonna be optimal, as you've seen. Sometimes you need to help it by hand. That's when hand cycling it. But I would imagine that under real firing, conditions, you'll have enough momentum that this thing will just fully load the toggle. will fully close the breech and load the next round to be fired. Okay, so let's put those two guns here back. All right. Okay, now if we look at the gun without the, with the cam intact, all right, we move this. Okay, now this is the point where the we start working against, you know, start compressing the striker spring. Okay, so here up to the point where it sets. Okay, and so it leaves this much of a gap. If we look over here, if we do the same, you see the gap without the cam is bigger, is wider. It's about 10.5 millimeters, it's about 7 millimeters. Okay, now the Lugers in general, you know, the mainspring is very strong in bringing the toggle back, but then once the it starts acting against the striker's spring, or the striker is latched. Now this last few millimeters, you know, you have to kind of, you know, give a hand, assist the toggle. If you do it manually, if you have the momentum, it's not an issue. Okay, so if you open it a little bit, this will come back, and that's because of the effect of the mainspring, and also because the cam now starts to act on the as of this point here, on the striker's spring, so that will help it. Okay, in fact, this striker spring is compressed maximally like this, and when this moves forward, the striker spring is still compressed and the striker is back till this reaches the sear edge and it gets latched. So essentially what the cam is doing is retaining or compressing that spring to assist in the latching process. We're not having you start latching, compress the spring all the way, you know, on the way back. So essentially, upon recoil, the cam is going to compress the striker spring, is going to store energy in it, and on the way back, the spring is going to, striker spring is going to assist the mainspring, okay? And this tangential force that's weak coming from the mainspring will be helped by momentum that it gains from the striker's spring. If we look at this case, so the gap is bigger, okay? And again, you know, we're acting now against the mainspring. Remember, we're not compressing the striker spring, okay? The striker spring is relaxed. And if we reach this point, you see, that's 10.5 millimeters. I have to work on it, okay, for this thing to go in. And then the last millimeter or so, you know, if you lift it up, it'll go down. So that's because the mainspring is really putting that force, that weak tangential force, and the bigger this angle, the weaker the tangential force coming from the mainspring. But if it's tiny, it'll close it and maintain the breech, you know, closed, which is an important thing. Similarly here, okay, you see, that's coming from the mainspring. So this is more lubricated, less friction than this gun, and or the mainspring is stiffer. So you have this situation, okay? And that's with the striker set, okay? So the mainspring is overcoming the compressed striker spring in that case. Up to this point now it needs a little bit help, but it will close. Okay, that doesn't happen in this case. All right, so I hope this have helped kind of explain the cam and the working of the cam and its effect on the dynamics of the Luger. Now the big question remains, it can cycle by hand with the shortened firing pin. We don't have an issue. And the question is, if we do the real test, put say 4 rounds, 5 rounds, 8 rounds in the mag and try to test the Luger with the removed forward toggle cam, is it gonna shoot all those rounds or is it gonna hiccup? What's gonna happen? I feel that it's gonna work. But it's not a good idea, obviously, to shave that cam because, as you saw, it has some other uses. Okay, it shows you how a single toggle-related part like this cam, how it serves multiple purposes in a Luger, which is quite interesting. Okay, thank you for watching.